Hi, thanks for joining us. This is Selective Aggression, the third episode. I'm Tanner from Maniac Ball. I'm joined by Robert, who is also from Maniac Ball. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty peachy, actually.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm gotta be peachy when it's the first time the Angels have spent some real cash on a guy coming out of Cuba since, I believe, Kendry Morales.
Yep. That was the last. I'm not sure if that was the last signing. It might have been the last signing period, but it was definitely the last big signing.
Mhm. Yeah, and that was before he added the S, so you know it's real.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, the Angels signed the Cuban infielder named Roberto Baldoquin. He plays third, second, short, the corner outfield positions as well, reportedly. There is a YouTube video of him online, so if you want to check that out, we'll probably put it in the link in the on the blog post as well as in the YouTube description. If you guys haven't subscribed to us there, you definitely should because we put the podcast out on YouTube before the blog. Anyway, that video, he doesn't look that impressive to me. One of our writers, at least prospect writers, Scott, he likes his arm, thinks it's a plus tool. I don't see it at all. I'm not that impressed by this 20-year-old that we spent 8 million on. And if you add in the taxes, it comes up to 14 million. A lot of money spent on a guy I don't think is too impressive, at least from that video. But it is just one video.
Yeah. It's more of a test when he finally comes over here, gets to play. I mean, I'm sure they'll start him off probably at the lowest level, rookie ball, just get his feet wet. Move, and once he gets up to high A is probably where he'll start actually getting tested. He didn't really perform that well in Cuba. Then again, he is only 20. I know most of us are probably used to guys coming out of their more like 25 range, where they should be basically hitting. You know, their stat lines in Cuba are just like hitting like 370 with the 500 on base, stuff like that. He was hitting not too well, but he's a lot younger. But off that video, his swing looked okay. He got some quick twitch in there. It's hard. You need to see a live look. That's the biggest thing. It's very hard to scout off video, but
Mhm.
just we won't know what we got until we see him over here playing against real minor league talent. That's the key.
Right. And it really opens up the question to if we're gonna spend over our way over our budget for this international prospect, what's stopping the Angels from signing the top international prospect? His name is Yohan Moncada. He's been known, at least by Baseball America's Ben Badler. If he was in the draft, he would be the consensus number one pick by far. He is a shortstop, and he is reportedly very exciting to watch.
Yeah, and like you said with the bonus pool, most people don't know how it works, but based off your record, you get a certain amount of money per year. The Angels had something around like $2 million, so spending eight, and then you get taxed because they went over it by six, obviously. So you get taxed 100%. So that's where the $14 billion comes from. Once you spend that much over your budget in the international pool, you cannot sign a player for a bonus more than 300,000 the next 2 seasons. And if you don't know anything about international free agency, 300,000 really doesn't get you that big of a player. So once you're capped at that, you're kind of getting some smaller guys. I know I can't remember Ricardo Sanchez's bonus if you can, but they might be able to get some lower end guys. But for the next 2 years, they're done. They cannot sign anyone big at all. So they might as well spend big on this guy because you're not going to get to do anything for 3 more years, basically.
Yeah, the Ricardo Sanchez signing was with a bonus of 580,000. So with that limitation, you're definitely not gonna get something unless you're very good at scouting and you find uh, uncovered talent or say an older player, an 18, 19-year old. You know, not that great of upside, but maybe you see something, you can sign him for under that 300,000. But Ricardo Sanchez was 508,000. So it's with those limitations, you might as well just spend as much as possible. The Yankees did this. I think they spent over 10 million on July 2nd. That's the day where international spending starts, the free agency starts, and they spent a ton of money just getting as many prospects as they could to get into their system.
Yeah, they basically single-handedly are pushing baseball to go towards the international draft because of that one big move to just say, you know what, we really like the guys this year. We're going to sign, all of them. We're not going to settle for signing one or two pretty good guys. We're getting all of them. They have pretty much, I think, at the next CBA, there's a chance that an international draft will happen based off this 1 year by the Yankees. And so the Angels, on the other hand, pretty much did nothing. I think they might have got like one or two kind of
Hmm.
the lower guys, but basically did nothing. So now they're far past their bonus pool, so it's might as well. Why wouldn't you get him with a guy that exciting? And if you're willing to spend it, that's the type of talent they just do not get. I mean, really internationally, they got Eric Ibar, Kendrys Morales, but they really do not get much from the international system. They do really well in the draft when they keep their draft picks. So
Hmm.
I think getting a guy like that would be very, very big for the organization.
Yeah, especially just putting that guy into our system, just having a top guy, a position player, because our top position player is Alex Yarbrough and I guess Baldoquin as well. But when you get past those two, the system is pretty thin, especially in the upper minors.
Yeah, basically guys you're hoping kind of just turn a corner or like underscouted. I'm trying to think of like maybe Bo Way kind of guy where like, all right, maybe he was severely underscouted or underappreciated in the draft, but really after those two guys and obviously one they just got, the hitting is so thin that they need to inject talent, and this is really the only way to do it. Especially they're going to be picking because they've had the best record in baseball. They're going to be picking last in the first round, and I don't see them signing a free agent, so they're going to keep that pick at least. So there's really not much there. Usually by then you're picking an okay college starter and maybe a high school infielder, maybe.
Michael Chavis.
He was the type of player that got picked last year. I need to do a little more reading up on the next draft to see what the strengths are. I think it might be high school pitching again. I'm not
Uh,
too sure.
yeah, I haven't looked at that yet, but there's I think it's a strength in college. I'm gonna say, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it might be. It's usually how it works: is one's up, one's down, kind of thing. So hopefully there is something there at the end. Interesting guys slip there, but if you're picking last in the draft, it's getting a guy like Moncada would be very crazy.
Yeah, and then recently there was a trade, two trades actually. One was with the Astros for Nick Tropiano and Carlos Perez for Hank Conger. The other trade was from with the Rays for Cesar Ramos and Mark Sappington. We'll start off with the Astro trade. Essentially, what this was, if you look at the structure of the deal, the Angels called the Astros, asked about Tropiano. Astros went back and said Conger. I'm sure it might have not started with those names, but eventually it got to it. Angels asked for a backup catcher. Here comes Carlos Perez. So now, as far as backup catchers go in the system, we have the two minor league signings guys, Jackson Williams, and I guess maybe not minor league signings, but um, just now Carlos Perez, and then we have Jet Bandy down the minors, who are all
Not
gonna
much
get.
there.
Yeah, I mean it is catchers. I mean they're all gonna get looks to be the backup catcher. I'm not sure if they will sign someone, to be that backup. I'm not too sure who that would be, but they have three guys right there who seem to be decent enough backups. I'd like to keep Bandy in the minors for another year to see if that power is actually legit. If it is, that'd be awesome. If not, oh well, we have a great backup catcher in the minors waiting for us. And the other part of that pick, or that the trade, really was the big part, which was Nick Tropiano, a 24-year-old's starting pitcher, and we control him for the next 6 or 7 years, which is pretty great.
Yeah, and with Tropiano, it's not a very flashy profile. The fastball is probably average, depending on how harsh you want to grade it. Might be a 45 instead of a 50. Slider's probably about the same, but the changeup is very good, above average pitch, and changeups are usually pretty undervalued in terms of evaluating the prospect's whole package, and it's something to work with. He may only end up being a number 4 or number 5, but having a number 4, number 5 type starter controlled for 6 cheap years is pretty, you know, not a bad problem to have. It's
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with Tropiano comes his delivery. I'm not too sure why, but it seems like the Angels have a fascination of pitchers with below average mechanics. You look at guys like Garrett Richards, Matt Shoemaker is not that great of mechanics. Jared
Jared
Weaver,
Weaver.
C.J. Wilson, Hector Santiago. All these guys don't have the greatest mechanics. Tropiano's got, if you think of Richards without the spine tilt, a more exaggerated inside or inverted W, and a very weird separation from his glove. That's what you're looking at, and at least from the video, it doesn't seem to affect him that much. It might even give him more, at least a higher grade on his change because it gives him more flexibility there when he's throwing that. But other than that, I mean, we've seen guys with bad mechanics succeed before, so maybe this could be another case.
Yeah, it is quite an odd fascination. I mean, I'm sure it's just coincidence because uh, some of these guys over time have been from different regimes, like Weaver. But yeah, Tropiano, his delivery is very odd to say the least. You were talking about that separation. Basically, what he does is when you think about a pitcher, it's kind of hard to visualize, probably to talk about, but basically when they drop their arm down, their elbow is away from their body, and the ball is kind of near their thigh. That kind of gets a general idea. His is basically side by side to his body when it brings it down, which is very peculiar. I don't know if it'll hurt his forearm or his elbow or his shoulder or anything, or if it'll lead to that. But I mean, deception helps this. The stuff will play up if you have very good deception. So I don't know. I'm excited. He could maybe play in for the number 5 spot in 2015, which would be kind of possible. Depends on Richard's health, I think, but at least he's a good long-term piece.
Yeah, I mean, we have CJ, we have Weaver, we have Shoemaker, Santiago. I'm not too sure when Richards is going to get back, but I'm sure there's more reports coming out that he will be ready for opening day, which would be great. So there's 5 guys right there. Tropiano can come in, say Santiago has another, rough kinds of starts like he did last year, and he needs to go down the minors. So you just put him in the pen. We have Tropiano come in there and throw innings. And like we said before, depth is huge because either you have Santiago go down and you need to put in a starter, you have Nick Tropiano to pick now instead of like a Wade LeBlanc. So depth is great, and we're not going to get into that again.
Yeah, that's you must accept it as truth. Depth is good. We'll never speak of it.
Mm-hmm. And then the other trade was Cesar Ramos for Mark Sappington. This trade is really all you can say from it. Cesar Ramos, not a spectacular left-handed pitcher. He can spot start occasionally. That's why he's a spot starter. He started a lot in the minors. Now not so much. But he did start 7 games for the Rays in 2014. A replacement level pitcher. But he's a lefty. We needed a lefty, and we got him. And he's essentially costing what Conger essentially would make in arbitration. So we got a left-handed reliever, and we have a future starter, maybe a starter for next year, for Conger and Sappington, who pretty good reliever, probably won't start, but pretty good reliever. But we have a lot of relievers in our organization already, so the cost you're not changing any cost, but you're getting a lefty reliever and a starter.
Yeah, it's not a bad deal. I'm sure Sappington would be nice to hold on to because you get those cheaper years of control. But really, every farm develops relievers. Even with how bad the Angels farm has been, we still roll out relievers right now. So Saberton isn't a big price. They get Ramos for 2 years. He can at least be a lefty specialist. Pull it up right now. I mean, he held lefties do a pretty good mark. So yeah, I mean, trying
Not
to
not exciting, but
uh,
he's what we needed, a left-handed reliever.
yeah, it's not a deal to get worked up about. Unless
Yeah.
I mean, unless you completely thought Sappington was going to be the ace of the pen type of guy, but I don't know if there's many of those out there.
I mean, there was R.J. Alvarez, but we'll see how he develops. Um,
You mean the guy who's probably just as good as Houston Street that we
Probably.
traded with three other guys for Houston Street?
Yeah, those are the days. Anyway,
Yeah,
um, yeah, not too much to get worked up about. We have our left-handed reliever. If you've listened to our podcast before, we really had no idea what was going into the offseason. I did do an interview with the assistant general manager, Matt Klentak, and he said himself that they don't foresee any big changes. They don't really, I'm sure they have a plan, but they really don't, quote unquote, need one because they did win 98 games. They have most of their guys returning. And they said, basically minor moves are what you're going to see, and that's what we've seen so far, is getting a left-handed reliever and Nick Tropiano, who could be a starter for us, and Carlos Perez, a nice backup catcher.
I mean, I'm sad to see Conger go. He's kind of one of my favorites, especially for his framing. I mean, if you full on believe in catcher framing, then Hank Conger is probably one of the most undervalued players in baseball. Now it's a kind of extreme. I don't want to get too technical, but basically, a lot of websites that go in and measure framing by how many how many balls you turn into strikes, and that worth, each ball that you turn into a strike is worth a certain amount of runs. You accumulate enough of those over the season, all of a sudden, bam, you're worth a lot of value. Conger, if you gave all the value to him, fully believed in it, his framing was worth as much as I believe it was Buster Posey's hitting.
Yeah, it was somewhere around 3 or 4 wins.
It was like 20 wins above average or something like that. Is the number I saw.
Yeah, yeah, but like wins above replacement, that kind of thing. It was like 2 to 3 wins.
I think it was two.
Yeah, somewhere
I thought it was two.
it was somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was it's crazy high. He was basically looking at baseball prospectus. He was a top, I think it was 3 or 4 framer, and the guys ahead of him played basically double the amount of time.
Yeah,
Just to give you an idea, he was. And with framing, you can kind of see when a guy's actually good by their movement and where how little they move their body and stuff. And Conger, you can see really made a huge leap with his catching, and he just doesn't move. When he catches the ball, it sticks. That's the huge is when you watch someone like Chris Iannetta, he'll let velocity or movement drag his glove, whereas Conger fixed that, made himself very valuable basically off that one skill, which is pretty crazy. You don't really need to dream on his bat anymore. So it's sad to see him go because he's valuable, but at the same time, he's expendable because Chris Iannetta can still hit the ball so well, and you get a good arm like Tropiano.
yeah, and then it pretty much paves the way for a Jason Castro trade. Um, or maybe even playing him in the corner outfield. I don't see that, but Max Stassi, Hank Conger, platoon at catcher is something you might see for the Astros in the near future.
And they
And
got Coperon too, so they have like
yeah,
4
yeah,
catchers who are potential, splitting time. So they got to make moves somehow.
yeah, and essentially, let's talk about the qualifying offers. The majority of the players who got the qualifying offers were expected, except for 2 that were somewhat interesting. Francisco Liriano and who's the other guy? Michael Kadire of the Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, Liriano, I like, but I've kind of always been a Liriano fan. At 15 million a year, if he accepts, I think he's worth it. He usually maxes out about 160 innings a year,
Mhm.
and he's a very very good starter still. And 15 million for 160 innings of him is basically market value, something like that. It depends on if he can still pitch in a different environment because the Pirates are kind of well known for fixing broken pitchers. So we'll see how that goes if he goes elsewhere. But for them is a win-win because if he leaves, you're either getting the draft pick, which is huge for the Pirates as a pretty small payroll team, or he comes crawling back to you for less than 15 million. And then if he accepts, you basically get market value. So it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Kadire, on the other hand,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to hit on that. That was I kind of get it and I kind of don't.
Yeah, back to Liriano. He's a guy that the Angels are definitely not going to sign now that he's gotten that qualifying offer. As far as Michael Kadire, the Rockies are pretty public about him and saying that he's worth more to this organization than to any other team from what he brings in the clubhouse to what how he produces at Coors Field, which is a great hitter's park and a lot of hitters do well in it. So it's not surprising to see Michael Kadire do well in it and not do well in other places. Plus, they really, really, really like him in the clubhouse. Probably a future coach someday. Um, this is more of essentially just giving him that qualifying offer. If he accepts, he probably will because he kind of had an injury-shortened season. They give him that 15 million, have him for another year. Gonna try to extend him. If they don't get him, say he leaves, I don't know why you would. He likes it in Colorado, but maybe he gets a better offer somewhere else. Rockies get a draft pick to keep on developing draft picks and see if they can actually win in the future sometime. So, like with Liriano, it's a win-win for them.
Yeah, and I mean with Kadire, I could see a team giving him a 3-year deal towards the end of the first round, maybe. I mean, I could definitely see the Mariners signing him simply because they have a very, very well known infatuation with DHs, but it's tricky. I think he should take it. I think he probably will, but at the same time, if he doesn't, I could definitely see a multi-year deal from a team that is just like, we need the right-handed power, which is now going from potentially undervalued to overvalued to the market.
Yeah, the Mariners definitely seem like a team that would go ahead and sign Kadire to a 3 or 4 year deal, probably 3 year deal. Um, let's now shift over to the interview with Matt Klentak. We touched on it a little bit before, but from what you've seen, is there in the interview, is there anything you want to talk about at all?
Um, Trying to go off memory right now, which is probably the worst idea. Uh, oh no, it's always nice hearing from the assistant GM or really anyone from within the organization, kind of opening up about their views and stuff like that. And it was really nice how he repeated that they're a 98 win team, as if to say, "All right, we're not going to panic. We're a pretty good team. I know everyone wants us to trade everyone, sign everyone, but we're successful. We like the pieces we got, so it's very encouraging."
Yeah, he definitely reiterated that a lot, saying that they are a 98 win team. They're going to come back with the same guys. Really, they're just going to make minor moves to increase depth, create a blend of different players to create a good roster going forward. And if you hear an interview with any of the front office guys from the Angels, whether it be Scott Service, Jerry Dipoto, Matt Klentak, or anyone else like that, they will always talk about depth. They're going to talk about blending, getting a good group and a mix of guys together. And then you'll always hear them saying that they will always look at the present with an eye on the future, seeing what they can do to upgrade now as well as upgrade in the future. If you look at that trade with the Astros, you're looking at a trade that helps them in the present with Tropiano being there to be depth, that sixth starter, fifth starter, seventh starter, whatever, however you see Tropiano, as well as getting another catcher into the mix. Not only does that help them this year with depth, but helps them going forward, having another catcher in the system, as well as another pitcher they can rely on for the next 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I mean, that's the key for the front office, for every front office, is how do you balance that very, very difficult act of planning for the future and winning now, and how much you value both of them. So the Angels are kind of in a tricky spot. Their roster is very much so win now, and the farm system is very much thin. So maybe it is time to start. Okay, instead of going for that, let's just say a 93 win team, let's maybe move some pieces around. We'll settle for 90, but we'll have another piece for next year. So that when next year, instead of being a 86 win team, will be 88.
Yeah, definitely always looking for the future. And if you look at the pieces that you have on the team now, just face value, you have, Josh Hamilton, Albert Pujols, Mike Trout, Jared Weaver, C.J. Wilson. Like maybe this window for winning is pretty short. But you look at the rest of the team, you see young guys all around, especially in the pitching staff, where it really, really counts. Garrett Richards, Tyler Skaggs, Hector Santiago. Somewhat Matt Shoemaker in that he's cost controlled. You have Nick Tropiano down in the minors. You have Sean Newcomb and Nate Smith, and the horizon eventually they'll get there. Ricardo Sanchez and Joe Gatto and Hunter Green and all the rest of the guys. So when you look at guys of the future, you have a young team blended with an older team. The window is now. Definitely there's a short window for right now, but there's also a window sometime in the future when we get some more bats into the system, because we have a pretty strong starting pitching depth in our organization right now, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I think the window for the Angels over the last year or so has grown by, it's hard to put an exact number, I'm going to say like a year or two, because of the development of Garrett Richards and Matt Shoemaker and the trade for Tyler Skaggs. Before, I thought this past season, 2014, especially after that poor 2013, but I thought they were going to rebound some. But I thought 2014 that was it. They were going to start going to the dark ages because of the bad contracts, the no farm. But all of a sudden, you have Garrett Richards, who works really hard and becomes arguably one of the best, top 15 pitchers in baseball. And then you have Matt Shoemaker, who comes up and decides, you know what? I'm no longer going to get hit as hard as I did in AAA because I got this 70 grade splitter going. And then Tyler Skaggs, the Angels brought him over, lengthened out his stride, started getting the fastball back up to the low to mid 90s instead of the upper 80s to low 90s. And before his TJ I thought he looked fantastic from start to start. Maybe needed a little work out of the stretch, but just bringing in 3 players. And Cole Calhoun was another big one, but he was kind of I think he was always an undervalued asset. The Angels kind of knew what they had with them. But just 3 players like that, I think extended the window to obviously 2015, but to 2016, to 2017. And what that does is it lets you have more time to accumulate the cheap young assets.
Yeah, and speaking of teams who are looking to the future and building, or at least starting to build, some nice assets are the Dodgers. They just announced the signings of Josh Burns, who is going to be the senior vice president of baseball operations, as well as Farhan Zaidi, I believe his last name is Zaidi, one of those two, who was the assistant general manager of the A's, now the GM of the Dodgers. So big things are happening with the Dodgers, with their front office. Not too sure what's going to happen in the offseason with them. They might do some trades, some signings, some big trades. No idea what's going on with the Dodgers, but they're putting together a nice group of pretty talented, very smart front office people. Another just little thing about front offices is that we lost a scout. I'm not sure how important this scout is. His name is Levy Ochoa, who is now the senior advisor to the player development department with the Braves. Not too sure how important he was, but he is someone who left. Um,
If you're
now,
going up to player development, you had to know something about something.
yeah, so he knew something, and now he knows something for another team. Um, I don't know if you've read the article. I don't know if anyone else listening, all three of you listening, have read the article, but there was an article from the LA Times, basically an old man yelling at the kids at his front porch about how the nerds are taking over baseball. One of the things I really just don't understand is that, first of all, it's just dumb. The guy's either just a dumb writer and he's just gonna write whatever he wants, or he's incredibly smart because he writes something that everyone's gonna talk about for the next 2 days, and then everyone's gonna forget about it. But at least he gets super reference for that. So either really smart or just really dumb. But if you look at it, what he says is that it's better for player or GMs or front office guys to have major league experience instead of just being these stat nerds, MIT grads, all these guys. But if you were to look at a company like an Apple, a Microsoft, you're not going to go up to them and be like, "Oh, we need people. We don't need these Harvard grads and analytics to see if they can make a better company. We need guys who've been playing with computers for the last 30 years that actually like use the stuff instead of just mindlessly looking at like data." You
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 mean
would never
actually code and make the computers?
exactly. You're not seeing people look at companies and be like, they need to stop doing analytics and stats, but they'll do it for baseball because it's a game. It's
Yeah.
ugh, I don't
Well,
I
that
don't
was like,
understand.
yeah. He was saying, the nerds are taking over and they're going overkill. It's like, I'm sorry, dude, but the nerds have been taking over baseball for quite a while now. Ever since, I mean, you don't want to give all the credit to Billy Bean, but basically around that time, uh, pretty much every front office has become very analytical, except for maybe the Phillies. And look what they're doing, you know.
Hmm.
So I just shrugged this off because it's just so terrible. It was just, and he claimed all the Saber nerds were being defensive because they were poking fun of his article. It's like, well, you kind of missed the point of the nerds have been here for a while, and I just can't even like put my thoughts together because it's just so dumb.
Yeah, and if you've seen Ryan Terriot, uh, I'm trying to pull up the exact quote here, but he tweeted out that
It's a prereq to be
it's
a
a prereq to play baseball, to be a GM. You got to play baseball. You got to play the game. And everyone retweeted that like, oh yeah, all that,
oh
yo,
yeah, he played the game, he knows what's up,
exactly.
and
And then
and
Brandon
then it
McCarthy.
turns and then it turns out that in the last 20 years, three GMs on World Series teams have played baseball.
And then Brandon McCarthy, who's a pitcher who was for the Yankees, now a free agent, essentially replied to him saying that the two World Series rings he got were from GMs who never played the game. So he should be thankful.
Yeah, it's so ignorant, and it's the appeal to authority. It's like I played the game, I've been there. Where it's like, I'm sorry, but playing the game and evaluating the game are two distinct things. It's like when Joe Morgan was working for ESPN. If Joe Morgan wanted to come over and talk about playing the game and like how he would set up fielding or how he'd adjust at bat to at bat, okay, I'm interested. But him evaluating players on Sunday Night Baseball or whatever it was like, all right, please stop. You're torturing me. It's completely different areas, and people just think because one is involved with the other, you have to have done one to do the other.
Yeah, it's just something that's really annoying to listen to. If you ever watch um, MLB MLB Network and you're like aware of what's happening and what people are saying, there is a Twitter account out. I'm trying to get it now. Do you know what it is off the top of your head, Rob?
Is it heard on MLB Tonight?
Yeah, it was heard on MLB. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's it. Um, Essentially, it's just quotes from MLB Network saying, um, making fun of stats and just saying kind of dumb things, and no one's really calling them out on it. Um, it's pretty funny, so definitely check that out if you want to. But I mean, it's it hurts your brain if you think about it for a little bit. But hey, it appeals to some people. It appeals to other people. I watch it on mute just because I like watching the highlights.
Yeah, it's like the 24-hour news cycle for just like any general, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. It's like the 24-hour news cycle of MLB. You need some filler. You can't just do all highlights of games. I wish they could. I wish they'd make them play games at from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. for me to watch all day, but you can't really because most players probably don't want to play a 9 a.m. game.
Yeah, it's MLB Network is not the greatest, not the greatest analysis you want to listen to. At least if you want to listen
I
to
mean, they
they no.
like breaking down players. It's the same kind of thing I was talking about with Joe Morgan. It's some of those guys, ex players. I want to hear them talk about what they did as players, like their experiences or how they set up. Like if Harold Reynolds wants to talk about setting up for a double play, fine. I don't want to hear Harold Reynolds talk about how would I say it, like scouting a player. Like they bring him in for the MLB draft. Like this guy's never scouted once in his life. Like what the heck? Or what was it when Brady Aiken didn't sign? They had a whole team of guys there talking about it. They know nothing about the medicals. They know nothing about the actual situation. They're all just speculating. It's like, come on. I know you probably don't want like too many anchors to revolve in, but you got to give us something here because I don't want the ex player just going on a limb and guessing just because he's the ex player. He's a face everyone recognizes. So yeah, I kind of know what you mean, but I like it more than Sports Center where I'm just like, okay, how long until the baseball highlights? How long do I got to wait for LeBron to be done? Okay.
Yeah, I stopped watching SportsCenter a long, long time ago. Ever since they stopped, or at least they just never did just baseball. That's why I went to MLB Network, and then I started listening to what they said, and then I put them on mute. So that's what I do now. But check out Heard on MLB Tonight if you want to see some funny stuff. Check it out. I mean, like I said, if I want to listen to Harold Reynolds, I want to talk about how hard it was for him to travel and the effect of that on the players, not how much power Adam Dunn has if he hits 2,000 home runs a year and he hits 280, that kind of thing. Especially when they have no idea, like they're not actually looking at the stats or anything like that. They're just kind of guessing, you know. Like if you were to go watch like a little league game or just a bowling match and you see someone hit a pin or just throw a really good strike, like wow, that guy could be the next greatest baseball player in the world. He's got great talent, but it's like you're just kind of looking at it, and that's pretty much it. It's no real substance. But oh well. Some people like it, some people don't. Anyway, I think that just about wraps it up for episode 3. Um, Hopefully we can see the off season start pretty soon, and we won't see signings for a while, but at least we'll hear some rumors and see some tweets from hashtag sources. So that'll be fun.
Yep. This is my favorite time of the year where we start getting the mystery team involved. It's gonna be fun. I especially like it watching from the sideline because with the Angels, it's like okay, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to sign the next player to a stupid contract. Now I get to watch everyone else do it and point and laugh. but it's still fun.
Yeah, always this speculative with the trades and the signings, and the winter meetings are soon. Not really soon. Actually, they are. They're in a month, huh? Winter meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in a month. They're in December.
Yeah, so that's coming up soon, so that'll be fun. Um,
That's
yeah,
when the Trumbo trade happened.
that's when the signings of Pujols, Wilson, and Latroy Hawkins went down.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I was in class during that, and it was the week before finals. I was like, "Come on, Angels, what are you doing? I'm actually trying to get an education here." Oh, all right, I'll go on Twitter and read everything about it.
Yeah, went to bed at like 2 in the morning. They said that the Cardinals were offering him. They weren't going to offer him. Or no, the Angels were not going to offer him 250. They were all offering around 200. I woke up in the morning. We have Albert Pujols. I get to class, and now we have C.J. Wilson. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for another time soon. And if you read my post about the luxury tax, give myself a little hat tip. You'll kind of know why. There is not much money left for the season, but there's hope. There is hope next year. Actually, I don't know if you noticed this, if you had time, because I know you're working on your article. But at the bottom of my luxury tax one, I put a Google Doc that has all the payrolls or all the salaries for the upcoming years in terms of the luxury tax.
I'm not working on an article.
No, but it came out and you were working on your thing.
Okay. No, I haven't read
Yeah.
much of anything from Maniac.